Welcome to a new video series called Character Select, where I discuss and break down some of my favorite fictional characters in movie, television, and literature. On Twitter, I posted a poll about who should be featured for the debut episode, and an overwhelming majority of the votes went to everyone's favorite female foe against the xenomorphs, Ellen Ripley. Now, each Character Select episode will have to be tailored to suit the individual subjects. Some characters I'll discuss more in depth with regards to their various interpretations and reiterations throughout different types of media. But I feel my appreciation for Ripley stems primarily in the main four Alien franchise films, what a lot of people consider to be the main canon, and less so in a lot of the spin-off or expanded universe material. So yeah, I won't be talking much about the comics or novels or some of the games that in a way kind of contradict or retcon the main storyline or continuity established in the films, with maybe perhaps one outlier. Also, it goes without saying, if you haven't seen any of the original Alien Quadrilogy, be forewarned, there are spoilers ahead. So without further ado, let's dive right into what I am calling the 4 essential F's that comprise the character of Ellen Ripley. Now, these 4 F's are character traits I feel she demonstrates consistently throughout the franchise, but garner special focus with an individual film. Starting off with the theme of fear in the original 1979 Alien. This is something of a given, as the first installment, directed by Ridley Scott, is considered the gold standard in science fiction horror by many. The film almost feels like it's all about turning the hopefulness earned by Star Wars 2 years prior into a dark reflection of itself. Gone is high-flying space fantasy. Enter now a bleak, futuristic world where average people struggle to survive not just in space, but with the unknown and deadly dangers they stumble upon while in it. Fear drives the narrative of Alien, certainly. But it also drives the character development of Ripley specifically. From the onset, we're not entirely sure who our main protagonist or POV character will be in the Nostromo crew. There's a layabout yet caring leader, opportunistic yet relatable comic reliefs, and seemingly decent folk just trying to make an honest living hauling space trash. Ripley falls somewhere between all of them, and you get the sense that even though this was a job she never really wanted, she'll carry it out to the best of her abilities and follow the rules, making her something of a stick in the mud amongst the varied company.
Open the hatch!
Wait a minute. If we let it in, the ship could be infected. You know the quarantine procedure.
24 hours for decontamination.
It could die in 24 hours. Open the hatch.
Listen to me. If we break quarantine, we could all die.
Would you open the goddamn hatch? We have to get him inside.
No.
I can't do that, and if you were in my position, you'd do the same.
Ripley, this is an order. Open that hatch right now. Do you hear me?
Indeed, in a lesser or more simplistic story, Ripley's adherence to protocol would be the one determining factor in making you want to see that character get her comeuppance against the alien. Thankfully, though, Sigourney Weaver's performance roots the character's perceived uptightness in a genuine sense of dread and self-preservation.
Maybe I've jeopardized the rest of us, but it was a risk I was willing to take.
It's a pretty big risk for a science officer. It's, not exactly out of the manual, is it?
She is pragmatic, but not entirely cold to the plight of her shipmates. She is unflinching in the rules, but not without just cause. She's guarded, and for good reason when it comes to the unknown, which surprises me that people tend to parallel her to Dr. Shaw from the prequel film Prometheus. Shaw wanders carelessly into the unknown out of pure love for discovery, with little to no thought about the consequences. Ripley appears so uneasy with the idea of being in outer space to begin with that she can't help but think about nothing but consequences. She's who we'd hope to be in a very claustrophobic and terrifying situation such as this. But honestly, we'd probably resort more to the reactions of the rest of the crew. At least until Kane hits the fan. Once the xenomorph stands fully revealed, so too does our lead. Again, in a lesser story, Ripley's pragmatism would be the first to crumble to make her the first one down. But here she doubles down and proves the drive and skills that will see her through.
I'm for killing that goddamn thing right now.
Okay. Well, let's talk about killing it. We know it's using the air shafts. Will you listen to me, Parker? Shut up! We'll move in pairs. We'll go step by step and cut off every bulkhead and every vent until we have it cornered, and then we'll blow it the fuck out into space. Is that acceptable to you?
Even after the revelation that the system itself has been working against them, Ripley continues to maintain some form of order for the remaining crew. But through all of this, Weaver continues to show just how vulnerable the character truly is. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the final encounter with the alien. Ripley is stripped down of all of her protection, literally and figuratively, and is face to face with the deadliest creature in the galaxy. In a conventional Corman-style B-movie, this is where the underwear-clad damsel would let out a trademark scream. But Ripley is far from conventional. Fear drives Alien, and fear drives Ripley, until she starts to drive it. And that takes us well into James Cameron's Aliens and our second F. Family. Aliens is a far different animal from its predecessor. While still drenched in a moody and horrific atmosphere, the film relies more on high-octane action and aggressive mythos expansion to find its own unique voice. The terror of coming face-to-face with now hundreds of xenomorphs is still just as potent, but some of the tension from the everyman angle has been diminished by the confident and cocksure attitude of characters like the battle-hardened Marines.
Check it out. I am the ultimate badass.
Yeah. That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
To counteract possible desensitization to the spectacle, Cameron injects a thematic through line of family, taking root primarily with Ripley. Sure, Weaver conveys the grand sense of loss and trauma the character has already endured very well, and would have been very easy to leave the character at just that. A bitter, vengeful heroine who's simply out to settle a score with a very hated enemy. But Cameron and Weaver found another human element for Ripley to tap into so that she's not mostly driven by revenge. Mostly. Motherhood. Aliens is not so subtly cloaked in the subtext of motherhood. This is enforced by the film's special edition, where we see Ripley mourning the loss of her daughter due to decades of being lost in space.
I promised her that I would be home for her birthday. Her 11th birthday.
Even the 2014 video game Alien Isolation, set between the first two films, supports this idea.
Personal message. This is for my daughter. Hi, Amanda. I'm recording this for you, my sweetheart, and I hope you get to hear it one day. Don't worry. Don't worry about me. I'm sure I'll see you very soon. I love you, sweetheart.
Her story becomes more than simply revenge or survival. Ripley, whether she realizes it or not, is searching for the bonds to help keep her going, the familial bonds she has lost along the way. Cameron's story primes you for these parallels very well, and as things grow worse for our heroes, you see them less as a unit and more as a dysfunctional family. There's the unspoken attraction between the warrior woman and her counterpart, there's the crass but fun-loving uncle, and, of course, there's the lioness and her cub allegory brought to the forefront not just by Ripley and Newt, but by the alien queen as well. It speaks volumes about the appeal of a character that can make you cheer at this.
Get away from her, you bitch!
And then immediately make you blubber like a baby afterwards with this.
Oh, God.
Aliens brings Ellen Ripley to an emotional apex, and Sigourney Weaver exceeds in handling the challenge, garnering her first Oscar nomination in the process. The character sets aside her fears and trauma for the sake of others and becomes a leader in glorious fashion. It's a memorable performance in science fiction and horror that is yet to be matched or surpassed by any other actor or actress. Unfortunately, here's where the decline for the films really begins. Thankfully, Weaver is in tip-top form to be able to guide us through this mess good enough, and is able to add some sort of extra dimension in 1992's Alien 3. Bear with me here as I feel the assembly cut of Alien 3, the most coherent version of the troubled film, is still a jumbled mess of ideas at best. The production troubles with this movie are many, and out of all the films in the franchise, I feel this is the one that has the most trouble trying to find its identity. But amidst the cavalcade of tonal imbalances and disservices to fan-favorite characters that would make a lot of hardcore Alien fans probably turn away with disapproval, ironically, Ripley's able to find one thematic element to be able to carry her throughout a majority of the narrative, which is faith. Fans aware of the original wooden planet with monks premise for the film may notice the spiritual continuation of that iteration's themes in the final product. Certain characters take on the reverential tone they would have had in the original pitch. The dragon xenomorph adopts some of the satanic god's wrath metaphor that was originally intended for it. And despite the other shit show her life turns into in this movie, Ripley is offered some moments to contemplate her role in the grander scheme of things. Which, yeah, inevitably leads to a Christ allegory.
I need you to kill me.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Dead anyway. I can't survive it. But the one inside of me can generate thousands more. It can wipe out the whole universe. It has to die.
Ripley dies for our future sins. She genuinely has faith that her self-sacrifice, and sacrificing of the Queen embryo, will finally rid the galaxy of this evil rather than leave it to chance with a corporation and its murky motives. And despite it being an overall mess, I would have been perfectly fine with her having a proper ending in Alien 3. But it wasn't the end. So what new layer or dimension do you think Ripley's able to offer us in Alien Resurrection? Send in the clones, I guess. Though this still feels like a chintzy way to bring back a beloved character, Sigourney is still a professional, and at least was able to come out of this performance with some dignity. Well, maybe her and Ron Perlman, cause he just rocks in general.
Don't ever touch me. Ever.
In all fairness, Ripley 8 is not just an excuse to pick up the character from where we last left her. The concept of an alien-human hybrid clone is intriguing, and Sigourney Weaver really does add a sense of otherworldliness to the role.
Any questions?
Who are you?
I'm the monster's mother.
Ultimately, it's a facade of this linchpin character we've all become so familiar with, but still appealing enough that we're able to buy into it being a continuation of Ripley, if that makes any sense.
I can't believe you did that.
Did what?
Killed one of them. It's like killing your own kind.
It was in my way.
Trace familiar elements are still there. The pragmatism, the maternal drive, the self-sacrifice, but they're now perceived through a literal alien lens. As inferior a product as Resurrection is, the goodwill that Ellen Ripley has garnered throughout the franchise is enough to steady the proceedings, and allows us a little bit of emotional investment in even a literal carbon copy. And ultimately, that's what's so great about the character of Ellen Ripley in general. The settings may change, the odds may be insurmountable, the xenomorphs might be at the height of their power, but despite it all, we know that Ellen Ripley, human or hybrid clone, will get through it. We want her to get through it, because we'd like to think that in the same situation, we'd act the same way. We like to think that we can fight our fears, fight for our family, fight for what we believe, and fight to reclaim who we once were. No one may be able to hear you scream in space, but Ripley proves that that doesn't mean hope is lost.
This is Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo. Signing off.
Though, if we're being honest, speaking as a non-cat person, I personally would not have gone back for Jonesy. I look forward to your comments down below.